out. I might do that. Oh, we are
live.
now live.
Yeah.
Jokoto, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Narrative Muse, for joining us and coming to share your story today on this PledgeMe Live. We're coming direct to you through, hopefully, LinkedIn and Facebook. So wherever you are, it's great to see you there. For those of you that are new to this, we're going to be online for around 30 minutes. So diving into the world of Narrative Muse, their current equity crowdfunding campaign, and asking them some questions, but also really want you to ask some questions too. So if you have anything that you would like to know about this campaign or about Narrative Muse, feel free to just pop a comment in the chat below in Facebook or in LinkedIn and let us know what you'd like to know. Also love feedback. So any hearts, likes, things like that, super welcome. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Anna Guenther, and I'm the co-founder and chief bubble blower of PledgeMe. PledgeMe is a crowdfunding platform here in Aotearoa, New Zealand that launched over 10 years ago now, which makes me feel pretty old. But really what we do is we support Kiwis to fund the things they care about, whether it's companies or campaigns. And for the company side of things, it's companies offering shares. So raising investment from their crowds to achieve their growth plans and go to that next level. But enough about me, enough about PledgeMe. I really want to dive into what our fabulous guests have to say. So can we start, team, with you introducing yourselves? And maybe we'll start with Brough, and then we'll pass over to Nigel.
Sure. Thanks, Anna. So my name is pronounced Brough. Full name is Brough Johnson. I didn't think about what I was going to say here, unfortunately. I am originally from the United States, have been living here in Aotearoa, New Zealand for 20 years now. I am the co-founder and co-CEO of Narrative Muse. We do a lot of co's around here. Part of that that I'm really proud of is because at Narrative Muse, we work quite strongly, collaboratively and through co-creation. So it's really apt that we work together in this way. So I'm really excited to be, for Nigel and I to be working as co-CEOs. And quick background is my background is in the arts, in film and television. And we'll probably go into a bit more detail about what Narrative Muse is in a little bit. So yeah.
Just a quick shout out though. Not only is your background in the arts, you have an Emmy. Is that true? Was that a thing?
Back to this whole collaboration thing. There's a series called Rurangi, which was made here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and the team won an Emmy. So I was an editor on the series that won the Emmy, and which is really, really, really exciting. And it's an extraordinary group, particularly because it was a group of folks focusing on a story of a collection of people by and about Māori and transgender community here in Aotearoa. And it is a collection of people that have come together to do something really special that's never been done before. So I'm really proud of the whole team for winning that Emmy. Yeah.
Amazing. Teamwork. Love it. Nigel, would you mind introducing yourself as well?
Yeah, sure. My name is Nigel Lopez-McBean. I'm originally from the UK. My background, I should say I'm the co-CEO alongside Brough. We do the co thing a lot. It's kind of core to who we are and what we do. My background is in content creation. I've been involved in content creation in lots of different ways, in lots of different industries. Ended up working with Narrative Muse probably about a year ago after coming across Brough during a 18 months I spent in New Zealand, which was an incredibly fun time, lots of learning and all of that kind of good stuff. And yeah, what we do at Narrative Muse really kind of speaks to me on quite a deep level, because a lot of the issues and things that we're trying to solve are things that I've seen very close up, and things that I know are very, very, very real, and things that need to be solved. So yeah, it's a fantastic project to be part of.
That leads into the next question really well, Nigel. Like, what does Narrative Muse do? What are you doing?
So put very simply, we connect people with stories that in some way reflect them. So we essentially do two things. So Narrative Muse offers tailored recommendations on books, movies, and TV shows that are aligned to a person's values, identities, and interests. So rather than give you recommendations based on what you may have watched or read in the past, we are providing recommendations essentially based on your identity, on who you are. So we're a startup that uses deep tech for good. So we're building technology that uses forward data that effectively understands what diverse audiences want to watch and read, even if those particular stories don't exist yet. And that's the really fun and interesting bit. We're able to provide almost like a bit of a map of the future, because people are telling us in some detail the kind of content, the kind of stories, and the kind of themes that they're interested in.
And leading on from that, like, how do you make money? Like, what is the commercial model underpinning serving those audiences?
Yeah, the simplest way to go into this is the commercial model is based around sale of insights. So one of the things that's super important to us is that, one, we're being told by a very wide number of people across the world about the kind of content they're interested in watching and reading. And we're also learning an awful lot about future demand and finding pockets of audiences and themes that might be perceived as niche, that we're learning absolutely aren't niche. So what we're doing is we're using anonymized insights off the back of that data and sharing that with content producers and people that have an interest in finding and creating for new audiences.
Awesome. And Brough, how did this start? So where did Narrative Muse come from?
Yeah. Narrative Muse can feel like it's a whole bunch of things kind of like all mixed into one. So I just wanted to say real quick that for those who are watching this right now, anyone can go onto the Narrative Muse platform and find great tailored recommendations of things to read and watch. Absolutely anybody. So if you're watching this right now, it'd be real cool if you wanted to find new things that you possibly didn't know were out there, or possibly find some of the stuff that you did know. And we always really enjoy it when we hear that Narrative Muse already recommends things to people that they've already read or watched, which is real cool. It's a sign that we're doing a good job. And so Narrative Muse came from a place of really wanting to help audiences find stories that reflected them. That's kind of the whole premise of Narrative Muse. And we began with first creating the platform that exists now, helping people find those tailored recommendations. But the thing that we realized straight away was that the real challenge is there's only so much that we can do to help people find content that reflects them. If there's only so much of it, then we can only do our job so well. So Narrative Muse is ultimately a bigger ecosystem where we're not only helping audiences find recommendations of things to read and watch based on their taste and identity and preferences, but we realized that we needed to be able to help content producers understand this underserved audience. So we are also supporting those content producers. So it came from a place of first learning, well, if we're going to really be supporting these underrepresented audiences and these underserved groups, how do we go about doing that? And one, it's to create a recommendation engine, which is very different from just about every other recommendation engine that's out there, which is giving you recommendations based on who you are as a person rather than what's popular. We needed to start there. And then from there, we could start collecting this information to understand this anonymized information, to understand what audiences actually want, so that we could bring the social change to the whole picture, because we're a social impact company that's looking and seeking to really support underrepresented audiences.
Awesome. And Nigel, actually, before I do that, anyone who's watching, if you do have any questions or comments, feel free to jump in now and just add them, and we'll ask them as we go. So if you've got any burning question, feel free, go for gold, ask us now, we'll weave it in. But Nigel, my next question for you is, tell us a bit about the current campaign. What are you raising investment for?
Yeah, so we're currently equity crowdfunding, which is an idea that kind of speaks to us on lots of levels. As a platform that's built around community, the idea of engaging community to own a part of Narrative Muse and be part of our future, I think is a really cool thing. It's also a very handy way for us to be able to start to support some of the work we're going to do in building out our technology, support the work we're going to be doing regarding the sort of sale of the audience insights, and really begin to double down on and working out how best to apply the deep tech and AI to our content data. So there's a whole bunch of things going on. Added to that, I think one of the things that we've pretty invested in is the idea of increasing our visibility and promotion. One of the things that we've learned over the past year or so is that what we offer is very borderless, and we have a number of people across the world who are our users, and we need to support those users. And also, we've found that there are particular pockets of the world in which we're more popular than others. So again, we want to kind of double down on that and do the work that we need to do to kind of expand our user base and to ensure that our platform is potentially as valuable as it can be for authors, publishers, content producers, all of that.
And I just want to say off the back of that our continuing work does continue. So a lot of the groups that we've already been engaging with, particularly here locally in Aotearoa, New Zealand, that we are continuing to do that really big work with supporting our local screen producers and our local publishers and our local audiences and readers, etc. And our aim and hope is that this technology that we're building with this deep tech part of what we're doing and with the AI part of what we're doing is that we'll actually be able to get even more local stories onto the platform. And so while we are able to work with those that are outside of this region to do some of that work, but that it means that we can really grow locally in order to get those stories to global audiences as well. It's also really important to us.
Amazing. Is there anything else you want to add, Brough, around the technology itself and why it's really interesting and different?
Yeah, for sure. We always wish Courtney was on these calls whenever we're talking about this.
Yeah.
Courtney is our lead data scientist. Courtney, I bet your ears are burning right now. So Courtney, I'll just give a little plug. She is an author herself and has had a lot of understanding about the real challenges that authors face inside of the space of getting their books to readers and doing that in large quantities and en masse. And part of the challenge is there's a lot of content in the world, as we all know, and so surfacing your individual books in front of the right reader at the right time is a real challenge, and that's one of the things that she was hoping that we could solve here at Narrative Muse. So, what is the technology? So, I was speaking a moment ago about how Narrative Muse, in the early days, we realized that we couldn't do recommendations like everybody else. So most recommendation engines are based on backwards facing data or backwards facing experiences of whatever you've watched or read in the past. And that's done because it's actually easier to create a recommendation engine that is tracking past like people's behaviors and just recommending what's popular. The difficult version of a recommendation engine is by doing content-based recommendations. So these are recommendations that are based on your individual preferences and taste and who you are as a person, and matching that to content that matches those same things. The reason why this is a really big, hairy, sticky problem is that because it means that you have to have a whole bunch of data about the books, movies, and television shows themselves. So we collect over 60 data points per book, movie, and television show. When you go onto other spaces, if you go into Google, et cetera, or other places, you'll see that there's the data that they'll might show you is maybe the author, the filmmaker, the writer, maybe the tone, maybe the genre, and then the information stops there. We have to collect so much more information. We have to know how it makes readers and watchers feel. We have to know what the identity traits and characteristics are of the characters. We need to know what the topics are. We need to know where it takes place. We need to know if there's any information that people may not, or any kind of experiences that are in the content that they may not want to experience. Different phobias, for example, like homophobia, transphobia, racism, et cetera. And so we need to know all about that. And so the technology that we have is a way in which that we're collecting that information, but we want to now start using AI so that the process is not so manual, and using a deep tech or a deep learning process to do that. So what that effectively means is it means that we use all the data that we have from all of our titles and we combine that with other deep data sets in order to start being able to collect or pull together a lot more information about a lot more stories all at the same time. So that's a really big part of where we're going, which we're really excited about. It's also been a major, hairy, sticky problem that others haven't solved. So if we solve this one, we're doing something extraordinarily special. And that's the thing that a lot of the biggest media producers around the world are really excited about, is us cracking this problem.
Amazing. And that leads on to the next question, which is like the people that are interested in this and excited in this, the content producers and entertainment industry. What is the opportunity there? What is the global opportunity for Narrative Muse? Nigel.
Yeah, the opportunities around beginning to understand this thing that nobody really understands, which is what do these diverse audiences want to watch and read? I mean, it's a perennial problem in that a huge number of people within the creative industries often talk about wanting to service these audiences, but it's very, very difficult to actually find what these audiences want to read and what the commonalities in terms of themes are between them. So the opportunity for us really is, as Brough says, to crack this really big, sticky problem, which will ultimately help content producers really kind of work out who they want to be directing their ideas to, the sorts of ideas that audiences are really interesting, and also work out the commonality between ideas. Because one of the things that we've found is that when you separate content recommendations from what you may have watched or read before, all kinds of fun and interesting things start to happen. And people tell you about interesting things that they're interested in watching and reading that you might not have thought of. So one of the things that we're super excited about is finding out that certain ideas that have traditionally been perceived as being niche absolutely aren't. And also those ideas can cross borders in quite a really cool and interesting way. So a lot of the work we're currently involved in is essentially proving our own hypothesis. So beginning to sort of work with content producers who are interested in the new, interested in corroborating ideas, interested in looking at and understanding audiences more deeply. It's quite it's a big conversation that's going on at the moment, and if we can crack this, it's going to be really fun and interesting for a lot of people.
Amazing. And just want to do a call out again. If anyone has any questions, feel free to pop them in the comments below. It sounds like LinkedIn is actually not working at the moment. So Facebook, put the comments in the Facebook and let us know what you're thinking. Nigel, how did you hear about equity crowdfunding, and why did you decide that that was a path to go down?
Yeah, equity crowdfunding is something we've seen people do before. In lots of ways, people do it for lots of different reasons. I think it spoke to us because of the community nature of gaining that capital and equity. It's something that kind of fits with our ethos and who we are. Also, it's a really good opportunity for, if you're in the business of representation and equity, very often people don't get the opportunity to invest in businesses in that space at a really early stage. And it's a really sort of burgeoning industry at the moment. So the idea of giving people that opportunity was kind of exciting to us. And also it operates as a really good marketing and PR exercise for us. We're doing stuff like this. It gives us the opportunity to tell more people about who we are, what we do, why we're doing it, all of that. So from our perspective, it's kind of all upside, and then we're able to kind of present ourselves to other people while learning a bit about how people perceive us at the same time as well, which is really cool.
Awesome. And Brough, do you want to talk us through what the sort of minimum investment is for people coming in to this campaign?
Yes, this is a really big key message for us. So minimum investment is $50. We set that number we set it as a lower number on purpose so that it gave the opportunity for folks to have the opportunity to invest in a company like ours when they might not otherwise be able to, because we think it's really, really, really important for equity to be able to provide opportunities. So minimum investment is 50 NZD, New Zealand dollars. Those who are based outside of New Zealand, if it's legal to invest in your country, you are more than welcome, and we'd be very honored to have you on our cap table as well. And we are raising up to $750,000 NZD, so that means that maximum investment is anything up to that.
Awesome. And so if anyone is trying to figure out how to actually invest, we have a guide that we'll share in the comments to this post, but it really is pretty simple. You go on, you create a profile, and then you register to invest, which means you need a form of ID, and you need your address, and you need to read some documents to say you understand the risk of investing and what it means to become an investor. But it is just, we need to gather that information, which is a little bit different to a normal crowdfunding campaign because we're required to verify who you are, so you can be added to the cap table once the campaign is closed. So a little bit more information than normal. Just have your ID ready, and the system will talk you through the process. And Brough, what do people get if they invest?
I just want to say thank you, Anna, for mentioning all of that. We have had some folks that have mentioned that the experience that they have when they go onto the platform isn't what they're expecting immediately. So just mentioning in advance that there's going to be a tiny bit more means that folks are going to be prepared when they go in, which is amazing. So what people get when they invest, folks will be buying a part of the company. So that means when investing, you will be buying shares in the company. And as Renee, who's our people manager, often says, she's like, I look forward to having a few more bosses, which I think is very sweet. A lot of bosses. And so you will be buying shares in the company. For those that are investing, we're also going to be providing a list, should you like to be, in the same way that there are like credits in a movie, your name will be credited on the Narrative Muse page, as long as you're happy for your name to be listed there. We're also going to be building out some community features on Narrative Muse, and when that happens, when your username and profile is there, you will also receive a badge to show that you're one of our investors. And one of the last pieces is for those who are investing $50,000 or more, you will have the opportunity to have discounts on the insights that we are providing at Narrative Muse. However, if anybody is an investor of Narrative Muse and you're interested in the insights, we can have other conversations about what other discounts packages could possibly look like. It's really important for us that that information is being shared far and wide. So I'm really excited about doing that.
Awesome. We're going to shift gears slightly. We've talked a bit about the campaign, but I want to move a little bit more general and ask you, both of you, what are your tips for any up and coming entrepreneurs who are trying to work in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space? Anything that you've learned over the last few years that you want to share? Maybe starting with Brough, and we'll go to Nigel.
Ooh, I hadn't thought about this one. Entrepreneurs working in the JEDI space, justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Not gonna lie, it's a tricky space. It's a tough one. It's really, really important that we have a lot of people working in this space, but the social impact space in the startup world is a challenging space. It's challenging because there isn't a lot of capital in this space when folks are looking to raise money. There certainly is a lot of capital that is going into other types of for good companies, particularly the environmental space, which is wonderful because global warming is real. However, when it comes to the social equity space, it is a bit more challenging. I think the thing that I highly recommend is just creating like little I just have to be careful. I was going to say little gangs, but you know what I mean when I say that, like little groups, like power groups that you're working together. I have a few of those groups myself, and we meet up regularly and we talk about the challenges that we're facing, and we just are really there to support each other. I think that that's crucial. It's particularly because of the challenges that will happen for anyone who's an entrepreneur, but especially in this space. How about you, Nigel?
Yeah, I think the main thing for me is you probably need a very thick skin and get used to explaining what it is that you're doing and invested in a lot, because very often people that really care about diversity, representation, and equity, particularly in the startup space, will often be talking to people who don't have the same passion and often don't have the same level of understanding or expertise or lived experience that you might have. So you're going to have to get used to explaining a lot of concepts that are incredibly important and natural to you, to people for whom those concepts are completely new. And I think that can be a big surprise for a lot of people who are used to being around and always talking to people that get it. Once you get out the big wide world and start trying to build stuff and trying to make change and trying to do stuff that matters, you're going to have to get used to explaining your stuff in lots of different ways. So that's probably my big thing. I would say just be prepared for that, because it can be difficult, it can be draining, and also be prepared for pushback. Be prepared for people that actually don't really believe what you say or have a very different experience around what you might say. So it's always interesting. The one thing it is, it's never boring. That's for sure.
Never boring is good. I remember one time I showed the pitch video of an equity campaign to a group, and it offended a woman in the room, and it was because the video was it was a bit tongue-in-cheek. And I told the founder afterwards, I was like, hey, this woman was really offended, and she said she'd never invest in your company. And he was like, cool, that's my filter. Like I don't want people in who don't get it, so that's fine. And I think that that's sometimes the thing with this work as well, right? The people that don't get it probably aren't the audience to start with anyways. Like they might need to learn in the future, but yeah.
The challenge that we have, like, that is absolutely true. The challenge is you think about who are the folks that, this is why it's so important that the crowd really shows up for Narrative Muse in this moment. Because when we think about who tends to invest, who tend to invest in companies and VCs and the rest of it, there isn't as much representation in those groups, which means that it's just creating an opportunity for the crowd who gets it to actually invest in Narrative Muse is really, really important to us.
Totally. And have people own a piece of the infrastructure that's serving them, right? That's trying to build this up and make that change. I have a random question for you, one final one, before we start wrapping up, which is, do you have a favorite book or movie or TV show that you've seen through the platform recently that you want to shout out right now for people watching?
I can go first. I'm late on this one, but I finally just saw Fina. Fina is a film that was created here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, about Dame Fina Cooper. I really enjoyed it because I know Fina's story around the 1975 land marches, but I didn't have a really deep understanding of her as a person. And I was just really, really moved by the strength and conviction that was shown to do the work that she was doing locally within her own communities, but then eventually nationally. It's just a really powerful film.
Amazing. Nigel.
Yeah, I have to shout out to, I always have to shout out my favorite book of all time, which is Meta Mouse by Art Spiegelman. It's still, as far as I'm concerned, one of the best books ever written about second generation immigration. And there's a kind of definite bow between me reading that book and being here today, which is kind of cool. And also recently there was an anthology book called A Clear Dawn, New Asian Voices, which I think was Auckland University text. Which was really cool. I thought that was really fun. Lots of really nice different perspectives of Asian writers from Aotearoa. So that was one that I'd definitely shout out.
Awesome. Brough, we'll close up with you. How can people support? What's your final sort of call to action before we finish up this live?
I'd say biggest support is we do have a lot of folks that have invested in Narrative Muse in the past, and then we've got our current investors, our new ones, and I'm really, really, really proud to have all of you new folks joining us. For those who are new to investing in Narrative Muse or have invested in Narrative Muse in the past, what would be so, so helpful is just talking about your experience, what you enjoy about Narrative Muse, why you invested, why you're excited about it. And also for anyone who's connected with Narrative Muse in any way, if you have any questions or thoughts or want to know a bit more that could really help you to put money into this campaign, we're really here to support you with that and would love to talk to you one-on-one if that helps, or answer any questions that you have. We're absolutely here to help.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. We had a few people jump in and out. If you haven't already, check out the Narrative Muse campaign. We'll make sure the link is in the post on Facebook and LinkedIn. They've got 2 weeks to go, and they're halfway there. So on track, but we need you to be pledging and sharing. And if you have any questions around the campaign or around how to invest, please just let us know, either by popping it in the chat or sending us an email at PledgeMe, contact@pledgeme.co.nz. And yeah, any questions, let us know. Thank you for joining our live today. Thank you, Brough and Nigel. I'm going to hit end now.